And I'll flip it back. Okay, all right. Good afternoon and welcome to today's special board meeting. We called this meeting in order to review the results of your Sea Pines Property Owners Association drive to register over 600 property owners, and then to petition the resort to hold a referendum to amend the 1974 covenants. We have been in executive session briefly, and we're starting the meeting now. We have established a quorum, and we're convening this meeting as required by our bylaws. As a bit of history, as you may recall, covenant modernization is a priority for this year's board. There is a need to bring the rules and the regulations, but really mostly the covenants, into the 21st century. And those changes must be done by referendum. Per the 1974 covenants, a referendum must be called by the resort. There is a second option where 10% of Sea Pines property owners, participating Sea Pines property owners, may petition the board to call a referendum, and the resort may approve any referendum after all the votes are in. Currently, in the 1974 covenants, anytime a referendum is called, it must be executed by mail, and required signatures must be actual pen and ink signatures. I believe that all of us are keenly aware that none of our modern conveniences, such as the internet or email, text, software, were available or even conceived of back in 1974. This past April, your board held a special meeting and voted unanimously to sponsor a petition drive for a referendum to update these 1974 covenants. Can we show the statement of intent? The document that people were signing, the petition that people were signing, included our statement of intent. And that's not it.
Yeah, it's not on their policy.
It's share screen.
Is it a new PowerPoint?
Yes. Thank you. Next state. You can just go down one. There you go. No, just go down to the next slide. Yeah, click it. You're good. Yeah. And our statement of intent that came out of the board meeting and what people signed in terms of a document, in addition to the language of a proposed Sixth Amendment, states that wherever the Sea Pines covenants require or permit that some act be done in writing or delivered through mail, including but not limited to any portion of the referendum process, the use of electronic mail, electronic transmissions, and/or electronic signatures shall be deemed the equivalent of a written document or delivery by mail. So what you're seeing is an additional option being added to the covenants. No rights or privileges are being taken away. The results of the special board meeting, and we can just go back to the regular board now. Stop share. Yeah, thank you. The results of the special board meeting were shared with the membership via special announcement that was emailed in April. Petition updates were provided to membership during May and June board meetings and updates in newsletters. Now we are delighted to announce that we're successful in achieving our goal of 10% of participating property owner signatures. And this was accomplished in less than 90 days. It was an enormous undertaking, and not only was everyone on your board active in it, but there were also many property owner volunteers, as well as volunteers from some of the local regimes in Sea Pines. And we are grateful for your support, and we thank you very, very much. During executive session, we discussed a resolution, and we will bring that forward to a vote. Keith Burns, our secretary, took responsibility for directing the petition drive, as well as our notification to the resort. And we'll walk you through our process and the next steps. And Keith, I'm going to put up here, did you want to start with the data points, the summary data points?
I do.
Sorry,
Yes,
I missed stated
Yeah.
notification, but my apologies.
that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll start with the data points. Yes.
All right, just one more thought, before we turn it over to Keith, though. I just want to mention that this is the first time in our 50-year history that we've petitioned the resort for a referendum. So we're thrilled. It's a groundbreaking event. The pace was focused and deliberate, although, 90 days is pretty darn fast. So we're now looking forward to a successful result. Stay tuned. Keith, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Paula. Well, I'll spend a little bit of time, my fellow property owners in Sea Pines, going over what has been about a 2-month effort. I will use the information on a summary data points page that is included in the board packet, and Paula's bringing up. Once the board decided to and approve the referendum by petition process at a special board meeting on April 7th, it took a little time to organize certain administrative items, the drafting of the petition document itself, and a couple other items, legal review of what the actual covenant language would be that would be changed. We obtained from CSA a list of residential property owners dated April 18th, and we picked that date because our intent was to begin collecting signatures on that date, which we did at the third Tuesday event that occurred that evening. As of April 18th, the CSA file contains 5,826 listed separate residential properties and lots within our Sea Pines gates. The definition under the covenants of a participating property owner is one who owns a residential unit or a lot, but it specifically states that only one vote per participating property owners on a referendum, which means then if you eliminate dual property ownership plus, it reduced the number of participating property owners from 5,826 to 5,270, making the 10% threshold 527. Beginning on the 18th of April and through the last signing date we had of June 17th, we issued 36 different petitions to either board members or about a dozen community volunteers, as Paula mentioned. Of those 36, 35 were actually returned. We then undertook a process of verifying the 665 signatures gathered on those 35 returned petitions. And that validation process was tracing in the name and address of the property owner to that CSA property list of April 18th. Of the 665 signatures gathered, 608 were validated by being traced into that list. The validation rate, as you see, is about 91.4%, which is pretty good, I think, given this type of an effort. And 608 also represents an excess of 81 validated signatures in excess of the 10% minimum threshold of 527, or an excess rate of about 15.3%. So the board has reviewed all these statistics, has reviewed in a little bit greater detail the actual process used to gather and validate signatures. And we are prepared, or I'm prepared to introduce a resolution for notification to the resort to conduct a referendum vote. To that end, then, I would offer into consideration the following resolution, and I'll read it into the record, so it'll take just a little bit. I apologize. Whereas Article 1, Section J of the 1974 Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions, excuse me, I'm waiting for the screen to stop moving around on me a little bit. Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions by Sea Pines Plantation Company, Inc., the 1974 covenants, allows a referendum to amend the 1974 covenants to be called by Sea Pines Resort LLC, or the resort, upon petition of at least 10% of participating property owners. Whereas on April 7th, 2023, the Board of Directors of the Board of the Association of Sea Pines Plantation Property Owners and the Advisory Board of the Association doing business as Sea Pines POA unanimously approved a process for gathering signatures for a referendum petition to amend the 1974 covenants for the purpose of allowing the use of electronic voting, communication, and signatures with equal status to paper or manual votes, communications, and signatures. Whereas the board has initiated the approved process and has collected 675 signatures, of which 608 of these have been verified through matching participating property owner information from the Community Services Associates property owner listing dated April 18th, 2023, and whereas such 608 verified signatures exceeds the 10% of participating property owners threshold required under Article 1, Section J of the 1974 covenants to petition the resort to call such a referendum vote. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of the Association has reviewed and accepted the results of the referendum signature gathering process and hereby approves the notification of the resort that the board is certifying that the 10% participating property owner threshold under the 1974 covenants has been met, and to request the resort to initiate a referendum to amend the 1974 covenants to allow for electronic voting, communications, and signatures in the operation of the 1974 covenants.
Thank you, Keith. Any questions?
We need a second to the resolution.
Second.
Second. Any comments? Okay. All those in favor? Raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Aye, okay. We've unanimously approved it, except for our Ed Hughes, who could not join us today. Thank you very much. That concludes the business. Greg, you're raising your hand. Mute.
I think he's frozen.
There you go. I would just like to take advantage of the opportunity to thank Keith publicly for his leadership and the diligence and attention to detail and really scoping out the whole process. And we are where we are because of all that. And so, Keith, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I second that, obviously, but I don't even want to put an estimate next to the number of hours that we put into this project. Thank you.
It's a good effort. We're making history.
Yes, exactly. That concludes our business. We always take questions from the community. One question came in ahead of time. Did any others come in, Lisa? Okay, all right.
Paula. We need to adjourn the meeting before we do the Q&A.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Second? Thank you. We'll fix the agenda. The question was from Todd Schweiger, asking, what is the primary reason that Jill Jinks is fighting against the infrastructure assessment? There's not a lot that we have insight into, but the primary lawsuit, the lawsuit challenges the procedural aspects of how the referendum was called by the CSA. And that's it in a nutshell. There being no more questions, we've already adjourned, so our business is over. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Bye
Thanks,
now.
everyone.
Yeah.